Hey gardeners, Amy here with Garden Up, and today I want to share with you my thoughts and experience with No Mow May. So, what is No Mow May? No Mow May is a kind of a new thing. It's a movement to not mow your lawn for the entirety of the month of May. If I understand it correctly, it began in Europe, and the purpose is to give the flowers to the pollinators. Basically, when you have weeds in your lawn, those provide, hey, there's one right now. Hello, little honeybee. Those provide food and forage for honeybees, bumblebees, pretty much any generalist pollinator. And so by not mowing your lawn, you are feeding the bees. So that's where No Mow May came from. The reason they chose the month of May is because they were going for the early flowers, the early blooms, where there's just not a lot blooming. And there are things that bloom early, but dandelions are kind of the most prolific. And so people have just kind of concluded, hey, let's just leave the dandelions alone, let them be in the lawn, and then feed the bees with them. Makes sense. It makes your lawn an actual biodiverse contribution to the environment and the ecosystem, so that's pretty cool. And some other benefits are that it saves gas and electricity because we're not using our lawnmowers for an entire month, so that's cool. A little bit less emissions going out into the atmosphere. Yay. Can't complain on that. And lastly, in theory, it should reduce pesticide use because what's the point of letting your lawn grow if you're just going to spray it with pesticides? So I'll come back to that in a little bit more detail. So some things to consider if you are thinking about participating in No Mow May. First, if you don't have flowers or weeds in your lawn, there's not really any point because you're not contributing anything to the pollinators. But if you do have flowers or weeds or whatever you want to call them, then by all means, go for it. If you have a patch of lawn that doesn't have any weeds in it, maybe mow that patch. So that's something I did find in my yard, is that I had like a section of my yard that didn't have any weeds, and so I didn't mow it because I didn't really think about it until later, but there was no reason to not mow that section because there was no contribution of flowers just by leaving that part of the lawn long. This is a big one. If you spray fertilizers, pesticides, or any chemical on your lawn, then by leaving it long, you might actually be doing more harm than good. Because if you're spraying things that will hurt the bees and then luring them in with flowers, they're going to get into that chemical and they could get hurt and die, especially if it's a neonicotinoid or some other type of insecticide that will hurt them. So please don't do that. If you're going to leave your lawn long, then just let it be. Let it be natural and go back to its natural state where it's clean and doesn't have any harmful chemicals in it. Another consideration, something that I've noticed, is that it's really hard to walk in the grass when it gets this tall, so if you tend to use your yard for play or sports or whatever, that might be an issue. But Lily actually had an idea that I can't believe I didn't think of, but just mow paths through it. So that's what I'm going to do back here, is just mow a path from the door back to her playhouse and the gardens and the other areas that I need to get to. And so hopefully that will alleviate that issue. One other thing that kind of bugs me about No Mow May is once all the flowers are gone and it's all gone to seed, you kind of become a nuisance to your neighbors. So, you could wait and still mow it and hope to pick it up with the lawnmower bag, but most of it will get blown away either before you do that or while you're mowing. So a friend of mine posted a picture the other day of something so silly, I thought, maybe that just might work. And so I thought I'd try it. A shop vac. This is so silly, but it works. Check this out. You can actually pick up quite a few seeds in not very long of a time, and it's weird, but maybe instead of mowing, I'm just going to start vacuuming my yard. So I want to say something real quick on being a good neighbor. When you're doing something like No Mow May or growing a pollinator garden or whatever, that's a really awesome and just a good thing to do. You know, giving your yard back to nature and all those things. The problems come when the seeds grow and then they blow into your neighbor's yard. If there's a plant that most people see as weeds, like dandelions, and it ends up in their yard, some folks, the first thing they do is grab a spray bottle of some herbicide and they spray it, which can and often does do more harm than good, because you know you're doing all this good stuff in your yard for the pollinators, and then pollinators are going to naturally go to where the other person's weeds are, and then they get sprayed. So if you can prevent that spreading from happening, that does even more good. Let's just keep our natives and pollinator gardens where they were planted, where they're intentional, and where they will be kept safe, so we can be good stewards of our little space of the world. Lastly, this isn't about just being lazy. It's not where you just don't mow your lawn because you don't feel like it. It actually takes quite a bit of planning to do this right, which is something I kind of found out from experience last year and again this year. And so I'm going to use that as a segue into the next segment, which is what I learned while trying this. So last year I mowed my lawn on the last day of April, and I think I mowed it pretty short because in preparation for this. And we had flowers for several weeks. It was beautiful. And then I didn't mow again until the last day of May. And I'll tell you what, my lawn was over a foot tall. Pretty much too tall for the lawnmower to really get through it. So that's where I'm saying planning is important. You gotta kind of think ahead on this one. This year, I totally did not mow at all. I did not mow at all in April. And then by the time May came, I was going to try to do No Mow May, but I missed the cutoff to really do No Mow May. So it is like May 15th or 16th or something today. And my lawn is already about as long as I should let it get. And the other thing is everything's gone to seed. So there's still some dandelions that are flowers that haven't gone to seed yet. And of course you can't see them now because it's the evening and they're all closed. See? Flowers. But I'm gonna mow today. I didn't make it. But what I am gonna do is mow in segments. I'm only gonna mow like a quarter to a half of my yard at a time, so that the other side still stays nice and flowering. You know, so there's more stuff for the bees to eat. So I think that'll work. I think that's a good halfway, like meet in the middle idea. We'll see how it works. So my conclusions after trying this for a couple of years are that I think it has the potential to do a lot of good in the world. You know, reducing pesticides, giving food and forage to the pollinators. You can't really go wrong with any of that. It does tend to make your yard look a little messy. Okay, fine, but only for a couple of weeks. And honestly, if you want to throw a sign out in front so that your neighbors know, hey, I'm doing No Mow May, certainly nothing wrong with that. They'll understand, hopefully. We'll see. That actually gives me an idea. Let's sound off in the comments below. What are your thoughts on No Mow May? What are your experiences with it? And then, do you have any, like, especially particular or judgy neighbors that would dislike you participating in No Mow May? What are some of the concerns or arguments against it that you've heard, or anything like that? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I hope you'll join me in No Mow May and feeding the pollinators. And on that note, guys, I will see you in the garden. Here's a fun thing to do if you don't want the seeds to spread. I'm going to hold it though, okay? Ready? Oh my Okay, you can hold it. Hold it right.
Actually, you hold it.
You want me to hold it?
Yes, I don't want to get tortured.
Tortured? You mean torched?
Yeah. Ha ha ha. I don't want to die.
You're not gonna die. It's just a little
Wait,
bit
what?
of fire.
Can you make the stems go on fire?
Let's try it. Can we make the stems go on fire? What do you think? I think not. Because they're full of liquid latex. They're not gonna burn until that is gone. They're just starting to get fringed edges. Ooh! Ooh! Hold on! I'm doing another thing. Hold on. Let's see if I can still do this.
What you say?
What are you two doing to me?